Hello everybody, what do we have here? A shrimp goby and it disappeared. Let's look at this escape behavior again. I filmed this at 240 frames per second. It retracts into a burrow. Now, what a pretty fish to begin with. This is Amblyeleotris guttata. This is one of about 120 species of shrimp gobies. I filmed this in Darwin and in the Philippines. Let's look at these fish in more detail. So, this is a very small fish which is neither venomous nor does it have very sharp spines. So, it's in a very vulnerable position in the coral reef or sometimes in these adjacent fields of rubble and sand which are part of a coral reef ecosystem. Now, this fish has found a way of still surviving, and not just surviving but thriving in these ecosystems, which are, at least when they're not terminally overfished, full of dangerous predators, especially for a fish which is only 4 or 5 centimeters long and weighs only a few grams. Now, what this fish does, it has a burrow. And who builds the burrow? The gentleman or the lady who is coming from behind. So it's an alpha shrimp. This is a symbiosis here. So, a mutualistic symbiosis. The shrimp, which you can see in the background, is the one constructing pretty elaborate burrows. And what does the goby do for the pair? Where is the mutualistic nature of this interaction between these two species? Well, the goby has relatively big eyes and they're very high up on the head of this fish, which is fairly typical for small animals in flat ecosystems. That could be insects in a desert or crabs in mud flats. So this goby is on the lookout, and you can see the pelvic fins with which it perches here. The pectoral fins are kind of correcting its position in the mild current, and right now there was a little bit of a movement of the tail. So the caudal, the dorsal and the anal fin have become a tool for signaling its partner. Is it a partner? Is it a slave or employee? It's not clear. But in any case, they're working together, and the shrimp, you can see digging here, is very valuable for that goby. So without any moral position here of the goby, it values the shrimp and it wants the shrimp to remain alive. So if there is a threat coming close, it gives a little wiggle to the shrimp, and the shrimp understands these tactile signals, and you can see the antenna of the shrimp are in contact with that goby. So this is a fascinating symbiosis. It takes a lot of luck actually to be able to get as close as I got on that day to these fish. Maybe this fish had no bad experiences in a while, or I was calm enough to not be considered a threat by this fish. In any case, I was probably a couple of centimeters only away from it. I set the camera on macro and I got this footage. Now, just centimeters away from this goby, I also found a jawfish, and the jawfish is also living in a burrow. The jawfish is a little bit bigger than the goby, so it's big enough to actually dig that burrow itself. This particular species of jawfish, the yellow-barred jawfish, particularly likes these coral rubble fields, which they're not a sign of destruction. This is a natural part of the coral reef, which corals break because of surge, because of parrotfish sometimes, and then you have these fields here, and that's where these jawfish thrive. And they would have very different burrows. So the opening here is almost completely vertical, whereas the shrimp goby burrows are always existing in some kind of slant. And then this fish is very careful as well in dealing with the outside world, outside of its burrow. What's also noticeable about these is that they're mouth brooders. So this fish right now is not breeding. I did not see any eggs in its mouth, but just like in the case of the cardinal fish, or totally different ecosystem, totally different fish, these great African rift lake cichlids, which are very popular in the aquarium hobby. They also, some of them also mouth breeders. So in these fish, in the jawfish, the male is the one taking the fertilized eggs in its mouth to protect them after fertilization till the larvae hatch. So burrows are a big part of fish life. It takes quite a bit of intelligence, in my opinion, to pick the right spot and then construct these houses, these homes. So fish are not stupid. I hope you enjoyed this footage. There is a little bit more jawfish footage here. Enjoy the cool electronic music. This is provided by Gratis, which is there's excellent tracks which are free to use for creators. So I appreciate that. Check back in a couple of days. There's a big release of a longer video about scuba diving in Darwin, where I also took this footage. And support the channel, particularly share these videos on your own social media if you enjoy them. Leave a comment. I'm really trying to answer every question which there is. And see you soon. Bye.